In January of 1874, a farmer named James Warner and his wife Morning gave a corner of their land away on one condition. The deed says the land is theirs again if it ever stops holding a school or a church. 67 years later, the United States government took the land and a federal judge had to decide whether that promise still counted. It didn't. The court ruled the government's seizure erased the condition. The family got nothing. The school board got $1,412, and the land became part of the biggest thing the federal government ever built in Kentucky. This is the story of Lake Cumberland, told in the government's own photographs, because the Army Corps of Engineers photographed nearly everything it drowned. Two honest warnings before we start. These photographs were shot in black and white. The color was added by a computer this year, and the colors are guesses. Good guesses, but guesses. Every original is free at the Army Corps' Digital Library, uncolored and uncropped. The link is in the description. If the machine painted your grandmother's barn the wrong red, tell me in the comments. The Cumberland River made the case for the dam itself. February 1936. A Corps man crouches on the frozen river at Burnside, Kentucky. The caption on the print says the upper layer of ice was about 8 inches thick, resting on slush ice beneath. Cracks like this one ran clear across the river. The Corps was watching the ice because when it broke, it went downstream like a battering ram. 3 years later, the river showed what it could really do. February 4th, 1939. Burnside, Kentucky, from the hillside. The town is in the river. The Corps photographer logged it with an engineer's com. Flood at 63.2 feet. The crest the day before had reached 65.5. Rooftops and chimneys, roads gone. Whole blocks standing in backwater. The highway bridge held. The town below it did not. The railroad ran straight into the river and kept going. Burnside, Old Point Isabel, had been an important steamboat port on the upper Cumberland in the 1800s. By the 1930s, it was a floodplain with a post office. A man crosses Main Street by canoe. A woman stands outside the Burnside wholesale grocery, the water just off the porch. This was not a 100-year flood. This was the river's habit. The Corps nailed a gauge to a brick wall and photographed the number, 64 feet and climbing. Numbers like this one built the dam. Congress had authorized a study after the great floods of 1937. The Corps looked at 6 reservoir sites in the Cumberland Basin and picked this one. Wolf Creek, River Mile 460, Russell County, Kentucky. But before the government could build the dam, it had to buy the valley. And the Corps documented every parcel it condemned, field by field, building by building, with survey coordinates typed under each print. April 1940. Parcel R2R, the farm of L.C. Humble. June 1941. Parcel R1R, the farm of L.L. Mann. In the corner of the frame, the building with the porch, is the Long Bottom Post Office. The Mann hayfield, midsummer, with the post office beyond it. Everything in this frame is condemned. The view from the stock barn, the house, the outbuildings, the fence lines. The corn was still planted. The government photographed the corn. The stock barn, parcel R1R, coordinates typed on the print. The tobacco barn. The barn lot looking east. The privy near the residence. The federal government of the United States photographed, cataloged, and assigned coordinates to an outhouse. That is what taking a farm honestly looks like on paper. The humble place in panorama from the rear of the residence. And parcel R1BR, the privy behind the Beech Grove schoolhouse. Remember the Warrener deed. A school lot in this same county, taken this same summer, was the one the judge said no longer belonged to the family that gave it. A brooder house in the humble orchard. The apples came in that fall either way. Then, with the valley bought and the war one season away, Russell County threw a party. September 1st, 1941. The parking field, in the Corps' words, held automobiles from many points in Kentucky and Tennessee. Cups of hot burgoo and bread free to the crowd. The man in the white cap, the caption says, was the chief cook, considered the burgoo king. They stirred it with boat oars. 900 gallons, 650 pounds of beef, 88 hens, 8 bushels of onions, 16 bushels of potatoes, 80 dozen ears of corn, and 50 cases of bread to eat it with. Every number is from the Corps' own caption. The First Lady served in the burgoo line. After lunch came the speeches. The Corps put the crowd at 6,000 to 7,000 people in a county seat of a few hundred at the end of a gravel road. Under the tent, the dignitaries took their turns. Congressman Albert Gore of Tennessee, the father of the vice president, spoke. So did Senator Tom Stewart. And then Major General Julian Schley turned the first spadeful of dirt. Look at this photograph. It is in color. Real color, not the computers. Someone at the Nashville district hand-tinted this print in 1941. Painted the ties blue and orange, the grass green, the Boy Scouts' neckerchief red. Human color guesses. 85 years before the machines. The machines moved in that fall. Drag lines stripped the bottomland down to clay. A steam shovel loaded spoil wagons where the corn had been. Families drove out to watch the valley being unmade. Then, 3 months in, Pearl Harbor. Washington first ordered the dam rushed, power for war industries. Then it ordered it stopped. At roughly 3% complete, Wolf Creek sat out the war. After the war, construction resumed, and the Corps soon faced what its own history calls its first large-scale relocation problem. This is why. November 1949. Burnside, Kentucky, from the air. The flood town of 10 years before, now sitting on the bottom of a planned lake. The Corps' plan was to scatter the residents into other towns and be done with it. Burnside refused. The district history says it plainly. The intensely loyal citizens of Burnside demanded the town's existence be continued at a new site, and the engineers yielded, though it raised relocation costs 18%. So the town moved up the hill. Whole. September 1950. The relocated area, graded and waiting. The old town stayed where it was. The Corps didn't burn it or bulldoze it for the newsreel. They emptied it, and the water did the rest. The dam's hardware came through the region's towns on trucks. November 1950. A powerhouse girder crosses the public square in Somerset, and the whole town comes out to watch it turn. The truck is longer than the courthouse block, making the turn onto Highway 80, one parked car at a time. December 1st, 1950. That's the taking date the Court of Claims later used, the day the flooding began. The water walked up 101 miles of valley toward the empty streets of Old Burnside. The man and humble farms were already gone a different way. Their parcels are labeled in the Corps' own files Wolf Creek Dam. Not everything drowned was on the surface. A family that had owned mineral rights under 2,800 acres since the 1860s sued for compensation. Their problem. The deeds proving where their minerals were had burned with the Clinton County Courthouse in 1864. They spent a decade in the Court of Claims proving title from Civil War ashes. They asked for $431,000. In 1960, the court awarded them $8,225. Meanwhile, the powerhouse went up. April 1951. A turbine's lower-head cover with men for scale. From the erection platform, July 1951. The powerhouse from the high side, the lake already forming behind the dam. June 1952. Unit 1's rotor is lowered onto its shaft. The generator hall from the observation balcony, 270,000 kilowatts in a valley that had been kerosene lamps and ice flows 20 years before. September 1st, 1951, 10 years to the day after the burgoo, they dedicated the dam. General Lewis Pick, Chief of Engineers, spoke. So did Governor Lawrence Weatherby. The Army band played. The Corps counted the crowd again. Approximately 2,000. 10 years earlier, 7,000 people had come to watch a shovel of dirt. The party for the promise was 3 times the size of the party for the thing itself. Vice President Alben Barkley, Kentucky's own, gave the dedication. Almost noiselessly, he said, "The clear waters impounded here will surge through the giant turbines, pouring forth an endless stream of electric power." The visitors stood on the overlook and watched the water. That's the district history's own page. The dam more than a mile long, 240 feet high, and enough water stored behind it to cover the entire Commonwealth of Kentucky 3 inches deep. Congress made the name official in 1952, Lake Cumberland. Here it is in May 1958. 101 miles of river became lake. Much of it averages 100 feet deep, under the water and under the works. A post office, 2 farms photographed down to their outhouses, a schoolhouse lot with a broken promise attached, and the streets of a steamboat town. The Corps' later color print states the final figures: 5,736 feet long, 258 feet at its maximum height, 10 miles southwest of Jamestown. In 1951, the dam helped cut a flood crest by 30 feet at Salina and 11 feet at Nashville. Burnside has not been in the river since. The lake it sits beside became, in the Corps' own words, one of its top-ranking reservoirs and visitors. Whether the trade was worth it is not the government's question to answer. The government just kept the receipts and the photographs.